They beat the All Blacks. They boasted the best lineout and the highest tackle success rate in the entire Rugby Championship. So why did Argentina finish dead last? This isn't about passion. It's about execution. Los Pumas are the great paradox. Elite in some areas, completely broken in others. They're leaving tries on the table and collapsing when the pressure mounts. Today, we're stepping into the analysis room to expose the brutal statistical truths. If they don't fix their critical red zone failures, the Northern Tours are going to be a painful reality check. Welcome back to Rugby from the Stands. The 2025 Rugby Championship is over. The trophy is lifted, but for the coaching teams, this is where the real brutal work begins. This is the first episode of a 4-part series where we're changing the perspective. I want you to imagine you're sitting next to me in the analysis room. You and I are conducting the end of season performance review. We're looking at the raw data, the stuff that separates emotion from execution, and deciding what needs to change before these teams head north. We'll be using a framework crucial in elite sport, a 5-lever system used by top international sides. What do we need to start, stop, do more of, do less of, and sustain? Today, we open the file on the most confusing team in the tournament, Los Pumas. All right, let's get straight to the verdict. The record is 2 wins and 4 losses, 4th place. 162 points for, 214 against, a negative 52 differential. The wins were significant, 29-23 versus New Zealand in round 2, and 28-26 away to Australia in round 4. But we also dropped 2 games by less than a score and suffered 2 heavy defeats. Most notably, the 30-67 dismantling in South Africa. The picture the data paints is simple, dangerous, but inconsistent. So, what's the grade? I'm giving them a C. There were flashes of top-tier quality. The line-out, the ruck security, the tackling percentage, and that statement win over the All Blacks. But why a C and not a B-? Because the 2 close defeats came with enough 22-meter entries to win both. Finishing and decision-making were the constraints, not opportunity creation. The ceiling is high, but the floor showed up in Durban. Let's look at how we scored and conceded. This is where the paradox becomes clear. We scored only 14 tries. That's last place. Yet, we made 716 carries, the second most in the tournament. This is critical. It's a conversion problem, not a supply problem. We are working incredibly hard for very, very little reward. Our breakdown work is elite, 97% ruck retention. The ball is safe, which makes the low try count even more disappointing. The defense tells a similar story of extremes. We had an 86% tackle completion rate, joint first in the competition. Yet, we conceded 214 points, the most in the tournament. The issue isn't the system whiff rate, it's collapse under pressure and a failure to win the dominant collisions when it mattered. And the set piece is split. We had the best lineout in the competition at 85.5%, but the worst scrum, 87%. 87% scrum stat is absolutely unacceptable. We must acknowledge the keystones. Santiago Carrera, 72 points. Marcos Kremer, 97 tackles. And Bautista Delgui, 6 clean breaks. These players are performing at an elite level. Now, let's move on to the key performance indicators or KPIs. What are the metrics that actually correlate to winning or losing for this team? The number 1 metric, the KPI number 1, is red zone conversions or points per entry, PPE. This is the single biggest lever for Argentina. The target for any good team should be 3.2 points per entry. So look at the data. We are lower than the opponent in 5 of the 6 games. In round 1, we only had 2.33 points per entry. In round 2, just 2.0. Round 3, 2.14. Round 4, a dismal 1.0. In round 5, we had 3.0. We only edged the box in round 6, 3.38. Even the magnificent win against the All Blacks in round 2 came with fewer points per entry. We won via pressure and penalties, not clinical finishing. This is unsustainable. KPI number 2, dominant collisions. When Argentina lose the hit, their tackle percentage might look fine, but the gain line advantage and the quick rug speed against them are killing the defense. The round 6 game against South Africa shows the picture clearly. 7 dominant tackles by us versus 19 by them. If we flip that collision differential, we flip the scoreboard. KPI number 3, set piece strike rate. We have the best line out at 85.5% and the worst scrum, 87%. We're relying on phase play and penalties to score rather than using our elite line out as a strike weapon. The maul threat is criminally underused given our line out success. Let's look at our match by match audit, right? Quickly identifying some of the key learnings. In round 1 versus New Zealand, we dominated territory 60-40. We had 9 entries to their 8. But that efficiency, 2.33 PPE versus 4.75 by New Zealand, killed us. What's the fix? We need to pre-call the menu for the first 2 red zone phases. Take the easy 3 earlier to control the game's tempo. In round 2 versus New Zealand, actually, this was the blueprint of how we should be playing. Right? We had 59% possession, 7 line breaks to 1. But again, our PPE was only 2.0. We won this game by forcing errors and kicking penalties. Pressure is what won us, not polish. It also helped that New Zealand played pretty poorly. But to be fair, I think our pressure that we mounted on them was excellent. Round 3 versus Australia. This, I'd say, was the heartbreaker. We had more entries. We had 7 entries. But our poor efficiency, 2.14 PPE. The game was lost in the final minutes due to a lack of composure and clinical finishing earlier in the match. In round 4, this was a massive coaching win, but there were quite a few worrying signs. And the first one is the fact that we had 13 entries and we only averaged just 1.0 PPE. We controlled the game for 76 minutes and won with Carrera's boot. Phenomenal game management, but that was terrible attack. Round 5 versus South Africa. This was the demolition. South Africa scored 6.1 PPE. This was a total system failure, driven by exit errors and a massive collision deficit. When the dam broke, we failed to slow the game down. And then in round 6 versus South Africa, this one hurts the most because it was actually our best attacking performance. 10 line breaks, and we finally hit our PPE target of 3.38. We lost because of the dominant tackle deficit. South Africa had 19 dominant tackles versus our 7. So they physically overwhelmed us in key moments. So we have the data. Now let's implement the action plan. This is what we take to the players before the Northern Tour. We must address the dismal points per entry. We need to install 2 distinct attack patterns inside the 22. The first is a fast option. We run 3 phases under 3 seconds ruck speed, and then we need to play through 9, 10, 12 with inside balls. The second option is a slow option. We go maul, pick and go sequences. The goal here in both these menu options is to achieve more than 3.2 points per entry across the tour. We need to start weaponizing the maul. We have an 85.5% lineout success. We must start converting this platform into points. So the target is 1 maul try every 2 games. We need to start a bench collision plan. We lost the physical battle late in games. We need to load the bench with dominant tacklers and a breakdown specialist to deploy with 20 minutes remaining. We need to stop relying on penalties as plan A. Kicking goals kept us competitive, but 14 tries in a tournament is actually a failure. We must shift the intent to scoring tries first. We need to also stop slow exits after restarts. The round 5 blowout was exacerbated by slow recycling in the backfield. We need to have a hard rule. First exit under 8 seconds. We need to stop the scrum regression. We must stop accepting the worst scrum. This needs immediate technical and personnel review. We need more early touches for Delgi. He is a top-tier threat. He had 6 clean breaks, so we need more scripted plays to get him the ball early in sets, especially isolating the 13 channel off the line out. We also need more Kremer as the tone setter. He's a top tackler. We need more impact from this work rate by pairing him with a dedicated jackal to translate tackles into turnovers. What do we need to do less of? We need to have less unstructured offloads in midfield. We are second in offloads, at 44 offloads in the tournament. It's a good weapon, but we need less of the low percentage midfield offloads that expose us to counterattack tries. We need to implement a one offload rule, especially when not playing under advantage. Now, what are the stuff that we need to sustain? The first is ruck security. 97% is world class. We must maintain this security even as we increase our attacking tempo. We also need to sustain and maintain our tackle technique. 86% completion is, I wouldn't say excellent, but it's good. It's great. Okay, keep the technical standard high by focusing on increasing the dominance of those tackles. We also need to sustain line-out detail. Keep the same calling rhythm and throw shape. Just add the maul weaponization on top. Now, what's our Northern Tour action plan? So, how do we translate this review into practical training before we head north? First are the targets. These are non-negotiables. Red zone PPE has to be more than 3.2. Tries per match has to be more than 3. Dominant tackle differential should be more than 5. That means that if they put 7 dominant tackles on us, we need to hit 12 on them. Penalties conceded needs to be less than 10. Scrum success needs to be definitely more than 92%. Second, the drills. We need specific training blocks, especially to run the 3-phase 22-meter rehearsal, right? Running 2 speed menus, tracking ruck speed and carry height relentlessly. We need to have the maul ladder, focusing on the 5 key lineout calls, adding peel options, and finishing with maul to goal line decision drills. The lineouts are working. Let's convert that into an attacking weapon, right? Dominant circuit. We need to have 3-man tackle pods, double hit, then jackal with live reloads, focusing on winning the collision. Exit express. We need to restart receipt to kick exit under an 8-second shot clock. Finally, selection notes. We need to bench a specialist jackler for a 20-minute burst, something that South Africa does very, very successfully with Quagga coming on, right? And we must identify a tight head prop who can anchor the late scrum to lift that success rate from 87% to our target of 92%. So, the 2025 Rugby Championship was a reality check for Argentina. The C grade stands. The gap between their best and worst performance is too vast. The focus for the Northern Tour is clear. Fix the red zone efficiency and win the collision battle. All right, that's the review for Argentina. Now I want to hear from you. Do you agree with the C grade? What do you think is the biggest priority for the Pumas? Drop your thoughts below. Next up, in our Coaches Review series, we are looking at the Wallabies, a team that finished third, but whose underlying statistics raise some serious questions about their attack and discipline. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching. Rugby from the Stands.